But see, that's your question was, what's my biggest problem with it? My biggest problem is where it was developed. Nobody knows. Question.
You said it was viewed on a Saturday?
It was viewed on a Sunday.
When was it taken?
It was viewed, the film was taken at about 1:40 p.m. Friday, October 20th, 1967. Apparently it was processed one day later up in Washington State, maybe Yakima, maybe Seattle. Then it went to Al Biatley's home, Roger Patterson's brother-in-law, and all of the investigators saw it.
So it was viewed on a Friday and...
No, the film was...
on a Friday and viewed on a Sunday.
Right. The film was made on a Friday, apparently processed on a Saturday, could have been Sunday, and viewed Sunday. Next question.
How do you tie that tie?
You know, I didn't even do it. I didn't tie this tie. I can see you have a real interest in Bigfoot.
My question is, so what if the film is fake? It doesn't prove a thing. We're here to discuss Sasquatch, not this film. I mean, this film you're saying is the most important piece. There's so many people that have seen evidence that even if it is fake, so what?
Okay. A comment well taken. Next question.
Yes, following along the line you brought up about the published book, taking this stance, giving yourself professional objectivity and not being true believer, does this taint your credibility in the future for anything you publish?
Yeah, I think it would. If I were to publish, say, another one of these jobbers, and then 1 month later I get the film of the century or I get something very significant, I think the other investigators should be inclined to question.
Well, I think this thought here seems like counting your own credibility right now. You're so objective.
I don't know how to take that, but I try to be objective. I try to be as honest with myself as possible, and I try to look at the data that we have as open-mindedly as possible. Next question.
Yeah, you're talking about 18 frames per second versus 16 as it should be, really.
Right.
Right. Now, 28 years ago, electronics wasn't on the market that strong, and we can take a watch or whatnot which had an adjustment for its speed, which could actually go to 5 to 10%.
Right.
Now, if we're looking going back 16 to 18, well, maybe the camera was a little faster.
Yeah, maybe its setting said 16 frames per second.
Yeah, but it was probably giving 18 instead, or 17.
No. The point I'm trying to make here is that Grover, on this particular point, don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing Grover Krantz. I like Grover Krantz. Is that on this particular point, I think he was a little bit off the mark.
The 18 frames.
Can I clear something about
Patterson?
Robert, let's go with Robert Milner really quick.
4 days ago, I talked to the person who probably knows more about this film than the owner of the film, René Dahinden. He is back in 1967. He was working for Transparent Film and Alpha Scene in Vancouver, and he was asked to make various what he called optical copies of this film under magnification, etc. Now, there is one way to find out exactly when this film was developed, because in the Kodachrome processing, they imprint the date on the film. So you should ask the owner of the film, bring it forward, and we'll find out for sure. Put that to rest, okay? The date that it was actually developed.
The original film?
The original film.
The original film is in Los Angeles.
Okay, wherever the original film is, that will tell you. The copies will give you a different date because they were made later on. Under different film. It wasn't Kodachrome.
Let's Dr. Fehrenbach, go.
This concerns the 16 versus 18.
Well, can I finish?
That was my fault.
I'm not even
Robert, that
close
was
to
my
being
fault.
finished.
Go ahead.
Okay. This fellow who saw and had the original in his hands says that the film is, the footage that is in question is 30 seconds long. At 952 frames, that means it was shot at 32 frames per second. This is a well-respected filmmaker here in British Columbia, living in Vancouver. Back in 1967, as far as he knows, there was only 3 places this film could have been processed in the west coast of the United States and Canada. One in Vancouver, at the Kodak lab. Under Canadian copyright laws, that's the only place that film could have been processed is at a Kodak lab. And there was only one in existence, and that's in Vancouver. Or two other places. One is Palo Alto, California, and Hollywood. Now, if it was filmed on the Friday, they got out Friday night according to everybody's recollection, can that film get down to Palo Alto and back into Yakima within 24 hours? This film processor, this fellow thinks very unlikely. Okay, that's the time frame that we have to have. It's right there. John saw the film on Sunday. It was supposed to be shot on Friday, developed on Saturday, and got back to Yakima on Sunday. Yakima had no processing lab that could do this. Okay, they were under license. Private labs can do it in the United States only, but they're under license from Kodak. No such lab in Washington State was available in 1967 to process Kodachrome 2. One other thing, it is an hour. You can have this film processed in 1 hour and returned. Okay? That Kodachrome can be done in 1 hour. You can sit there and wait for it to get done if you know the right people at the lab. From when he searched this film, he looked at this film quite a few times. He under magnification of 100 times and made various copies, close to 300 feet of copies. Now, according to his recollection, it was not a 100-foot roll, it was only a 50-foot roll that he had in his hand.
I mean, did he have a copy of the film?
No, he had the original in his hand.
What is his name?
His name is Bert Bush. Okay? Now, yeah, there's some stuff that in your book that you're...
No, I just wanted...
You don't know about.
Right.
This is what I found out, trying to find out. I was contacted by a fellow named Harry Campbell, who is also a camera operator, an animation camera operator. In the fall of 1967, he claims to have been working in the midnight shift at Alpha Cine. Over in the next editing room, there were two people, Peter Van Oom and Ingrid Rosen, editing a piece of Sasquatch film, drinking beer at midnight, saying, "This is a film, and we're putting together a film on it." So I tried to search down these two film editors. I got in touch with a fellow named Bert Bush. Now, I had no idea about his part in this until I started talking to him. He said, "Well, no, you should talk to me. I had my hands on the original. I made all the copies." He didn't know who the names were of the people who asked to have the copies made, but he said that they were very apprehensive, very nervous that the film was going to be ruined. Then I find out it's John and René who were the people that the film to him. When he worked on and made all these copies, I asked him, "Well, do you think this was a setup?" He says at the time, he didn't say what he thought now, but he said at the time I thought he was not fake. He said if it was fake, it was the best makeup job he's ever seen, and he's been in film for well over 30 years. He also said that the camera work, if it was fake, was very creatively designed to appear to be a stumbling, bumbling idiot. You know? But if you really want to know if this film could have been processed within that 24-hour time period, let's look at the original. Because on the Kodak processing, Kodachrome is imprinted with the date it's processed.
On the film itself?
On the film itself. So it's very easy to find out this information.
Well,
if it was
René Dahinden
processed
has...
on the 18th, we'll know it's a hoax.
Right. René Dahinden has the master copy of the original film. So in other words, his strip is the same strip as the original.
No, then it will have the copy, it'll have, if it's imprinted with a date, it'll be the date that copy was processed.
Okay, well, you would have to ask that individual about that.
Wherever the original footage is, I have no idea. If it even exists today, it's going to have the date on it. If it does not exist today, if somebody has taken it and ruined it, we'll probably try to find out that there was a 24-hour time frame in which it could have been processed, and it wasn't processed then. And that's possibly why the original film with the date imprint on it is no longer available. There's not much else I can say about this film, except two things. I made some notes the other day. One is that I've talked to, maybe 15 people who have seen the Sasquatch in person. one comment that they always make is that the hands hang around the knees. Now this animal's not stooped over like this, but standing upright. The hands are at the knees. In this film, they're not. Okay? If you take a look at the statue that's on the front of his magazine there, if the arms are swinging down, they're swinging about right where mine are. Okay? That's one discrepancy in, not the film, but the image on this film. And with all the other people who have come to me with a personal sighting, as far away as only 30 feet. They say, where's the hand? They're right at the knees. Not mid-calf, as Roger Patterson film is about. Two, the photographs taken by Roger Larry one day after, according to, I guess that's the information.
I have a question mark next to that. Apparently he was there one day after October 21.
Okay.
Saturday.
Right. Showing the photographs, if you'll take a look at that magazine, there's actually three photographs. One of the right foot and two of the left foot. The two of the left foot are different feet. Take a real close look at those photographs. If I may just use this piece of mat board here.
I didn't answer that.
On the photographs taken by this Mr. Laverty, and imprints made later by Bob Titmus, the toes appear, well, I'm not a very good drawer, but they appear roughly like this, with a small angle difference between the small toe and the big toe. There's not very much space difference, the length. The rest of the heel comes down like this. Now, there's one other photograph of the same left foot, and the toes start out like this. More human. Where the big toe is predominantly way out in front. Very big discrepancy between two photographs taken of the same left foot at Love Creek.
The foot is flexible, toes are flexible, making it.
Would it?
No. Guys, if it's got a flexible foot, they can spread the toes out or make.
Yes, but we're talking about the length between the big toe and the small toe. The space between here, say 1 inch. On one of the photographs there, if you draw a straight line across the top of the big toe, you've got way more space on the second photograph. Now, you can stretch your foot out, but you're not going to grow the little foot that much. That's just a discrepancy that I see as a photographer. That yes. Oh, okay. There's points that are made there, but in saying that this is why when I see two photographs of the same left foot, and they're supposed to be two, the casts show this image here. One photograph shows this image. The next photograph shows this image. Now, I've walked an awful lot in bare feet, and my feet don't grow that much to change the length between the big toe and the small toe. It's just a small discrepancy. But the real point is we're trying to make is, can the film be filmed on Friday, brought out on Friday night in Bluff Creek, California, and what time did you see it on Sunday afternoon?
Well, it doesn't even matter what time we saw it, because we actually had it for quite a while before we saw it.
Quite a while. Okay, now, according to this fellow who's been in the film for quite a few years, there's only 3 places in northwestern America that it could have been processed at, back in 1967. The Kodak Lab in Vancouver, which is a day's drive from Yakima, to get there and process the film on a Saturday night and then back for Sunday, or Palo Alto, California, or Hollywood. Now, if they went south to Palo Alto, I know the distance between Yakima or even Northern California and Palo Alto, it's a good day's drive back in 1967.
Well, there were a significant number of television stations that had their own processing too. And they did that for outside people.
Okay. Once again, we can only know exact time frame by seeing the original footage, and it's imprinted with the time. If it says the 21st of October, then okay, we have a possibility that this was completely by chance that a con artist happened to stumble into a Sasquatch. That's all I'd like to say. He said after talking to this fella, he filled in an awful lot of blanks about the film on a technical basis. But as I said earlier, his impression, the fellow that did all the optical copies, under 100 power magnification, he does not think it's fake. He does believe it's real.
I have another comment concerning the 18 versus 16 frame rate and Grover-Krantz, because what Grover-Krantz states in his book that the presumptive height of the Sasquatch varies with a presumptive frame rate, which is of course absurd on the surface because you'd be able to take it in a still photograph and it have the same height. So I asked them how the dickens did he arrive at that, because that has a bearing on the reconstructed film speed. And he said it has to do with the pendulum effect of the arm. If the arm is so long, it would pendulum. Well, you can attack that by a plain, simple, little experimental run, which you could do in front of the audience right here. You can vary your own walking speed with a metronome. And I happen to have a piano and a metronome on it. So you walk back and forth in the living room and have your family watch you until you get to the speed below which you're just sort of creeping along artificially, and a speed above which you have to unnaturally walk like the Olympic walkers. And for me, that range covers plus minus 20%. In other words, if you superimpose that on whatever the median Sasquatch gate is, or some imagined film speed, it certainly covers the range between 16 and 18 easily. And therefore it means that a derivative film speed that you extract out of some supposed invariable pendulum swing of the arms is highly unreliable, and you ought to stick with what the camera says. Another item about the camera says specifically if you're filming without sound, use the 16 frame rate, whereas with sound, 24. And obviously they didn't film it with sound.
Question?
Casting further doubts on a subject that's got enough doubts already, I kind of question the wisdom behind taking it apart. So what if it's 32 feet per second or 32,000 feet per second? When I seen it the first time, my intuition senses told me that this thing was real. We got enough unity and discord in this group already, and it's not contributing to further, progress. And I don't think this is really constructive. I think there should be more unity, and we should all get together and go out the field and, like Mr. Patterson, he came up with a most substantial piece of evidence by devoting his time, his resources, and he went out in the field. And this is where our energy should be put, if we're really serious about it.
Yeah. A comment to that? I'm staying up here to the 22nd of May, so I can get out of this monkey suit and go out looking.
But, I'm saying that taking our 6 guns out and shooting the most important piece of evidence that we have of putting holes through is not really constructive. It just puts doubts in people's minds. We don't need to put any more doubts, because I know it's real. There's a lot of people.
Okay. Point well taken. Any more questions?
Yeah, that gentleman with the penguin feet.
Right.
By any chance, did he immigrate to England and do crop circles?
It's the same type of character that would be behind crop circles, if they are fake. I know nothing about crop circles, but
They're not fake.
yeah.
I would just like to add, one of the reasons I brought this whole thing up was this fella, an animation camera operator, came to me and said that he believes the entire Sasquatch is a fake. Now I know it not to be from people, honest people like he talks to them. So I had to hunt down why he thought so. Because he had definite ideas that people in the next lab were making a film on the Sasquatch in the fall of 1967, drinking beer and saying it's hoax. and he's seen this film, and he says, well, listen, in the film you see a zoom, and this camera supposedly doesn't have even a zoom lens on it. So all these bits of information had to be clarified, and I was glad to be able to talk to Bert Bush in order to clarify. 30 years ago, this fella, who is a professional, had the original film in his hand, and he believes it was real.
Where do you see the zoom in the film?
Well, this is why when a professional animation cameraman comes to you and says, well, I see this and this and this and this, I have to find out exactly what he is talking about.
You've seen the film yourself 100,000 times. You know there's no zoom, so therefore this guy, what he's saying is not worth a damn.
What he probably saw, according to Bert Bush, was one of the optical printed copies, which was zoomed in on while they were making the copy.
Enhanced, yeah. The film itself is not going to be right.
One of the things I always found was interesting about the film, that really impressed me about it, was not all this measurement stuff, who did what, and films, you know. It's the fact that the Patterson sighting, I'll call it, assume there was no film taken. It's like so many others I've heard about. They heard it first, or the horses did, and they just see it as it walks away for a few seconds. One of the first giveaway of all the videos we see is the cameraman can never explain how he managed to keep the thing in camera range so long. You'll see it, bright as day, and then you'll see it again. The whole background has changed, but it's still there, and we still got it in range. I've heard so many stories where someone was walking through the trees, and it was almost like the thing was standing there watching, and when they got too close, it bolted. And the person hears it, looks, and sees the unbelievable as it goes away. The only difference between Patterson's sighting and so many hunters we've heard about, he had his camera with him. He filmed it. It is almost exactly like everything else. He didn't go and get it on film again. It wasn't clear, really. It's exactly how you would feel it would turn out. The camera was shaking. He was obviously panicky. He was obviously shaking when he filmed it. You would be. I would be. I've been looking for these things since '79, but if I ever got one in front of me, I'd probably go, you know.
It's a logical sequence.
Yeah, it's a logical sequence. It is so typical of hundreds of sightings we've heard. Hundreds. Unlike a lot of the other films that have come out.
Where the animal walks back and forth.
I came here today to René Dahinden phone me up and ask you to help me out in this presentation. I have a background in sports medicine, and that, and things of that nature. And several years ago, he said, come down and examine this film, and if it is a fake, tell me what it is. Must have been filmed 20 or 30 times, had still copies of the US visa, one for one. And I've done all kinds of studies with comparisons made with powerlifters. And I coached world-class powerlifters that came second and third place in the world. And when you train with weights or anybody who has an activity out in the wild or on their job, their body will develop to the work that they're doing on the job. Let's say if you're a tennis player, your right forearm and your right hand is going to develop more than your left. A powerlifter develops a certain type of physique. Now, I've seen this creature, back shots in particular, the trapezius muscles and other muscles of the body develop in such a way that no human would have it like that, unless he was doing a certain type of movement. And that movement is a lifting, bend over, lifting movement. His body's developed to pull towards it, not push away. So whatever this creature is doing, it's lifting things up and it's squatting and it's bending at the lower lumbar block. And it has given this type of structure to this animal. Now I hear, okay, I said to René, I have my opinion, I've got my decision, my conclusion. What is the conclusion on the other side where they say this is a fake? And the number one thing is it's a man in a fursuit. Now I wish you had René was supposed to show a slide for me of the picture, the famous classic picture. And I can show you on that slide, that's no man in a suit. Does anybody have a copy of that? Do you have a copy of that shot?
I've never seen a suit with lumbar muscle.
Yeah, Henner has it.
It's not only that. I can point out about 20 different muscles of the body in each particular, and show you where the force is going through the skeletal structure and everything. And that was a fursuit. That's impossible. It's absolutely impossible to be done. Because the force would be going inside, it wouldn't show in the material. The only other way they can do it is if they put some kind of sticky substance on a naked human being and stick individual hairs on there. Okay? But if it was a man, and there are men around that I've seen that are 6'5" and weigh 350 pounds. This creature I've told is 6'6" and weighs 350, 450. So, and WWF wrestlers can get that big. They had one there, Giant Gonzalez, 8 feet tall. So men can get that structure, height-wise, size-wise, mass-wise. But the structure where the neck and the trapezius muscles attach, and the length of the forearm to the hand, here, is not human. It's not human. The structure where the jaw attaches, like Robert Chance's, many times said this is his main part, shows the jawbone, etc. It's right. No man has that kind of trapezius development where the neck is gone. Everybody says they see the creature has no neck. It does have a neck. But the trapezius muscles are so great that it looks like the head is sitting right on the shoulder. Okay? Now, back in 1967, all the greatest powerlifters, all the strongest men in the world, this creature, by seeing his muscle mass, I know how strong he would be. I don't know of anybody, I've never heard of anybody. You can contact all the top trainers in the world. This individual, whoever he is, or whoever he was at 67, is not known.
He wasn't on weightlifting.
He's not, he never won any title in the world. I mean, a guy with a physique like that would live in Wales.
That's a very good point. There's Paul Anderson.
I know about Paul
Alleged,
Anderson.
well, he was the world's strongest man. His head and then the neck dropped right into it's basically just a big head sitting on the shoulders, and the neck was almost non-evident because the neck is so big.
They also remind you that footage, due to its size, it had that springy like gazelle spring in its movement, which is impossible for any man of that size to be able to have that spring-like motion.
That's
Fluid
looking
of ease of
right.
motion.
That's looking at the film from a technical, biomechanical aspect, and I agree with you 100%. That thing, I'm a long-distance runner, and I've studied the sprinters and the long-distance runners, and I could swear that if that thing wanted to bolt into a run, it would just go just like that, like a deer going off the road. They're tremendous hamstring. Right, and this thing is built tremendous hamstring muscles and the calves on it. The subject in the movie is super developed, not like a man in a costume. And it's just like, I don't have the problem like thinking like, yeah, it's a man in a costume, because I'm already satisfied that what is in the film is a living, breathing Sasquatch.
One additional thing about the film that would be very highly desirable to have is a transfer to videotape that is transferred at the 16 frame rate. And I suspect that may not be the case, because to my eye, the Patterson movie always looks a little bit hasty in relation to the mass of the creature.
Right.
And that may be
I'll give
functional.
you René Dahinden the mailing address. Just write and he'll send you a copy of the film.
I asked him, he didn't know the frame rate of transfer.
No, that is, studying a videotape is for strictly a scientific, purely scientific analysis. You have to study the master copy. I mean, if I were a top-notch scientist and I said, we need to study that motion film, I would say, who's got the best copy? And I said, well, and to study it, it would probably require money. And it's just like, because the person who's got the rights to it can say, I want this. Any other questions?
I got another point in there. I have several. Muscle mass of that creature, first, to maintain muscle mass, you have to have a hormone molecule called testosterone. The level of testosterone in the body, the bloodstream, determines the amount of actual muscle fiber you're able to carry. Okay, that creature is a female. It has breasts. Now, assuming that's original breast, the natural creature. The testosterone level in that creature to maintain that kind of muscle mass could not be a human being, female human being. So they've created themselves a controversy in trying to fake it. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
has to be genetic. That is a unique genetic individual in that film, where it's a female and carries that kind of muscle mass.
One of the things that I've always been not impressed, but I've taken note of, is that this phenomenon, or what you see in the subject in the movie film, everyone tries to tie it into no anthropological framework. And I'm saying you can't look at it with those preconceived ideas. This is a unique life form, and it's doing what it's doing. You know, you see what, I don't know its chemistry or the muscles or anything. That's why it's a big mystery. Question.
Who's paying the actor to be quiet over here?
That is a very good question.
And the one who did the question.
That is another good question.
To have somebody who did the question, who designed it.
How much would a costume like that cost?
Yeah.
Did Roger Pass have the money?
I know that I think either that guy in Oregon and I think John Green took the film to the guy who was in Hollywood parading around like on the I Love Lucy shows, Johannes Prohaska, who was the man in the gorilla costumes. He looked at the film and this was a comment made on one of the pseudo documentaries, and he had an accent. He's dead now. His son is still living. He said, if that is a fake, that is the best I ever seen. And he said, I've been in the costume business 32 years or whatever, and I wasn't in it. I didn't make it. That is the best.
It's not a costume, because you can see the
I
actual
agree.
contractions on the muscle.
Did you interview Gimlin? Did you actually go down and interview Gimlin?
Yes, I saw Bob Gimlin in 1990 in the summer, and he said, I heard about you. And I phoned him in 92, and he cooperated to a phone interview. So, and that was where the $400 and X amount of dollars on phone bills. Because the job I did at Bigfoot and Buck Creek, I wanted to get to the primary people, and yes, I did.
What did you ask him about where the film got developed?
He didn't know. He's not a guy that has. He's not a specific type of individual. He's like a truck driver and a horse breeder, and he lives a quiet life. But one thing I can say about Bob Gimlin, in terms of a witness, my opinion, Bob Gimlin is rock solid. I would give Bob Gimlin a lotto ticket and say, hang on to it for 10 days. I would have that much trust in him. I have no problem with Bob Gimlin. Roger Patterson, I have a problem with his character, but that doesn't mean if you're a crook, doesn't mean that you can't make a movie of a Sasquatch. Question.
A very important point when Skip, we're dealing with the physical matters. Also, a sound mind and a sound body, you would have to have an equivalent kind of intelligence for this kind of strength. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
So we're dealing with kind of a really formidable intelligence that borders on animal-like intelligence. And
Well, I've always been, from the information that I've studied and gathered and read, you have a super naturally intelligent being, life form.
Sure.
And that's part of the reason I believe that why these things have continued to slip out when we're there, Question, John?
I just wanted to clear up a couple of points you made.
Sure.
The 1964 track, Roger never claimed to find tracks. He was told where to go and see tracks.
Okay.
Similar with Albert Ostman, what he was basically saying was, this isn't one of the ones I saw.
Okay. That's
Yeah. And where the 18 frames comes from is from Roger, who said it was either at 24 or 18. He said that to me first.
right.
So, that's a blunder. It's Roger's blunder.
Right. Okay, I agree with
Yeah.
Yeah. That's question.
From a biologist standpoint, it doesn't take much intelligence to be elusive. You can't say that for the black-footed ferret with a peanut-sized brain. It simply means it's a highly adapted animal to its environment, and if its senses are not blunted by listening to rock music. It'll hear people approaching a mile away. It has better eyesight, obviously. Presumably its eye has had enough time to evolve a little bit better night vision, whether it be at the expense of color or whatever. We don't know that yet until we have an eye to section in thin slices. The same applies to smell. It's very unlikely that it has any better sense of smell than man has, simply because primates are not smell-oriented animals. They're eye-oriented animals. However, remember all these tales of the Plains Indians. They used to lie on the ground and they could tell you that there were 13 cavalrymen approaching 13 miles away, or they listened to the train track and they could tell it was kind of similarly, supposedly they could smell a fire, miles away. Well, if they are simply attuned to the environment closely, and you can at least expect the Sasquatch to be there, they'll be able to tell when you're coming a long ways off, and it doesn't take intelligence. If they had intelligence, and after all, we define intelligence by various higher attributes than just being able to make your way through the world as a functioning animal, even if it's highly efficient. It means communication, preferably speech, and tool use, and preferably tool production, and all that rolled together, transmitted from generation to generation as culture. And none of that is present. It is a straight animal.
Doctor, that's how we perceive intelligence, but who's to say that the killer whale is much more intelligent than us, but in a different way? And a lot of biologists...
That's then semantic, I think. If they cannot express their intelligence in
our form, why should we say that our intelligence...
Just a moment. As MC, I'd just like to say we've gone over time. I let this carry on because René left. René was supposed to speak next. Hopefully he'll speak tonight at 7 o'clock. I hope he will. Mark, do you know if he will or not? Good. Good. I look forward to hearing it. Okay, but if people want to continue the discussion here, you're free to do so. Carry on. It's fascinating.
There's one thing that